Disasters and devastating events are unavoidable facts of life on planet Earth. But what's interesting to ancient astronaut theorists like me is that every once in a while we find evidence that a catastrophe might be linked to an extraterrestrial presence. In the 14th century, humanity faced one of the deadliest epidemics in our history, when a devastating disease swept across the world. But what might surprise you is that these outbreaks were often preceded by sightings of mysterious otherworldly beings. Number 3 on our list of the top 10 alien disasters, the Black Plague.
Messina, Sicily, 1347. Italian sailors returning from the Black Sea develop dark, oozing boils and die soon after. The disease spreads rapidly throughout Europe and is given the name the Black Plague.
What you get with the Black Plague is a slow, lingering, painful death. And that's what is nasty. And it completely decimates populations. In the Middle Ages, the whole of civilization had collapsed for a time period.
Within 5 years, this previously unknown disease had wiped out nearly 1/3 of Europe, the equivalent in today's numbers of more than 300 million dead. And curiously, outbreaks of the plague were accompanied by sightings of mysterious aerial phenomena.
What's interesting about these accounts is that they seem to have originated after something strange was seen up in the sky. For example, they saw this shield made out of bronze and gleaming metal that appears to be floating in the sky. And then it is also described that this black dust came off that particular object.
People saw strange bronze ships spreading a mist around the entire area. And shortly after that, people began to become very sick and die.
During the Black Plague, UFOs were seen. Sometimes there would be vapor trails or something behind these UFOs. Certain researchers have speculated that, like this so-called modern phenomenon of chemtrails, that something like this was happening where UFOs are spreading really viruses and bacteria which will infect some people and perhaps kill them while others survive. And they develop a stronger immune system and are ultimately a hardier race because of that.
Bronze ships in the sky? A mysterious mist that made people sick? What natural phenomenon could explain these strange reports?
If you ask a historian today, they would say that they were hallucinating because of the illness. But how do you get thousands of people hallucinating the same thing?
In addition to the sightings of ships in the sky, were accounts of mysterious cloaked figures spraying mist on the ground. It was this report that gave rise to rumors of a black hooded messenger of death, later known as the Grim Reaper.
In one case, the chronicle recounts a group of men mowing down wheat, and their scythes were making loud swishing sounds, but not actually cutting down the crops. We can imagine that maybe what was perceived in medieval times as scythes making a swishing sound were perhaps some kind of wand shooting some kind of aerosol into the air that was a pathogen that made so many people sick.
There are eyewitness reports of these black-clad creatures. Now, to me, that is highly fascinating because it essentially depicts what looks like people in hazmat suits. Now, is it possible that what we have here are extraterrestrials wearing some type of protective suits?
These beings were tall, with hoods over their head, and they would have some type of device that looked like a curved apparatus, a sickle, which would spray onto the wheat. And shortly after that, the Black Death occurred, and people associated those beings with the coming of death. Maybe the Grim Reaper could have been extraterrestrials.
Number 2 on our list of alien disasters, the disappearance of Atlantis.
For over 2,000 years, historians and explorers have been fascinated by the story of a great cataclysm that destroyed a long-lost civilization known as Atlantis.
The first reference of Atlantis that we have is in Plato's dialogues by Timaeus and Critias. In the very end of Timaeus, it talks about this mythical place called Atlantis, from where any and all knowledge of the world came. And so some people have suggested that the first civilization on Earth may have been Atlantean.
Atlantis, as described by Plato, was a great civilization that was over 12,000 years ago. Atlantis had concentric circles that were ports and canals, and they led to a central city. And the Atlanteans were said to have great technology. They had huge fleets of ships.
Atlantis is thought to be a great civilization of high culture and technological achievement. They had robotics at a very advanced level, the power of levitation, which is how they built their glorious cities. They had achieved things that we still are not able to do.
According to Plato, the remarkable accomplishments of Atlantis came from an otherworldly connection.
According to legend, Atlantis was founded by the god Poseidon. He fell in love with a human woman named Cleito, and that they had 5 sets of twins. And these twins went on to be the founders of Atlantis. So here we see really a story of extraterrestrials, perhaps, coming to Earth at a very early date.
Plato said the Atlanteans were the children of the gods. They were, to use our term, hybrid beings. They were part human, part god, and perhaps also contributed to their ability to develop advanced technologies, as Plato described. But then that divine aspect that they possessed suddenly started to diminish, and that's when Atlantis was destroyed.
At some point, for reasons that are not entirely clear, the city disappeared. And it was either destroyed by a natural disaster, a flood, or if we look at the archaeological record, maybe even the eruption of Mount Thera as well in the 7th century BCE. But a disaster consumes the city of Atlantis and all of its natural wonders.
Was Atlantis destroyed by a natural disaster? Or did otherworldly beings punish the greed of Atlanteans by destroying it in a cataclysm, as the writings of Plato suggest? It's a question that might never be answered. But ancient astronaut theorists suggest there could be an even more profound explanation.
When Plato said that Atlantis disappeared in Timaeus and Critias, the accepted idea is that Atlantis at some point sank. Well, when you read the original Plato, Plato not once said that Atlantis sank, but he says that Atlantis disappeared in a night of fire, smoke, and trembling. In my opinion, Atlantis did exist, but it was never an island that sank or disappeared. It was some type of a machine, a type of movable island that the ancient Greeks referred to as asteria. Asteria means star that fell from the sky. The Atlantis description is very clear. I mean, it's concentric circles, and it has this bronze exterior. So what if Atlantis was a proverbial disc that descended from the sky, landed in the sea, was able to float around, and then lifted off again? At number 1 on our countdown of alien disasters, the Great Flood.
It is one of the best-known stories of the Bible, and variations of this ancient tale can be found in cultures throughout the world. It is written that God sent a powerful storm that rained for 40 days and 40 nights. The deluge created a great flood that submerged even the tallest mountains. It lasted for 150 days and destroyed all of humanity, except for one man and his family.
In the Bible, God decided, because human race was so sinful and wicked, to destroy everything, and at the last minute relented enough to inform Noah that he has to build a boat really fast and put all the animals in it and shut the doors. Then afterwards, life could continue when the waters went down.
There's a similar story in India. King Manu was warned by a fish that there would be a great flood. The king built a great boat and survived. In an Aztec version, a sacred couple hide in a hollow tree with a little corn and somehow manage to survive the deluge. Other versions come from Irish legend, Norse lore, also from China. This is a terribly important motif.
The common denominator in the flood myths around the world is that there was an otherworldly being, an extraterrestrial being who is providing knowledge to certain humans of what is to come. This tells us that there was definitely an extraterrestrial connection.
Was the Great Flood caused by extraterrestrial beings, as ancient astronaut theorists suggest? And if so, why? Perhaps clues can be found within a set of ancient documents known as the Dead Sea Scrolls. These scrolls contain the oldest versions of the Bible ever discovered. Among them were copies of a text called the Book of Enoch, which greatly expands on the story of the Great Flood.
The Book of Enoch is about these angels who are described as watchers, and it was said that 200 of their number come down from heaven, and they took mortal wives who begat offspring. And these offspring were of giant nature, and they were referred to as the Nephilim. And these Nephilim ran amok. It was said that they drank blood, they caused battles and wars.
According to the Book of Enoch, the Nephilim were guilty of horrific crimes, including slaughtering humans and feasting on their flesh. God ultimately decides the earth must be cleansed.
One of the differences is that in the Book of Enoch, the flood washes away the Nephilim, as opposed to the traditional flood story, which washes away people who have been rebellious and sinful.
You've got to wonder what was really going on here. Are extraterrestrials coming and now breeding with humans, which was somehow forbidden and wrong, but they did it anyway? And so the other extraterrestrials decided, this is a big mistake. Now we've got to destroy all these people.
According to the ancient astronaut theory, the realm of the angels was some type of a spaceship that was orbiting the Earth, and the angels most certainly were not angels. The idea is that the extraterrestrials, in the end, are looking out for our survival. They're not interested in killing us, so this is why some people were, quote-unquote, saved. For ancient astronaut theorists like me, the disasters featured on our countdown not only provide evidence of an alien connection, but also suggest extraterrestrials have played a greater role in the history of our planet than ever imagined. Perhaps as we continue to study these devastating events, from deadly plagues to nuclear meltdowns and asteroid impacts, the truth will finally be revealed. We are not alone. We have never been alone.